Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisholm, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. And it's time for another great episode of the Song Revolution podcast. Hey everybody, John Chisholm. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to sit around with me and get inspired and get all fired up as we have great guests, inspiration, information, all around grooviness for you here on the show. Today, I have a great new friend named Antony Bruno. Antony is one of the leaders from a company out of Denver named Royalty Exchange. And last year, I actually did an auction with two of my past catalogs, hundreds of songs through Royalty Exchange, and they are excellent. They're amazing people, and I've gotten to know them. I've made great friends with Antony, with Clayton, with Treva, with Gary, with Nick, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out, but they're opening an office here in Nashville, and earlier this week, I had the opportunity to sit down with Antony and actually talk through what an auction with Royalty Exchange looks like. Of course, I know because I walked through it with them, but just for your sake, wanted you to hear about this side of the music business. We don't spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's going to be fascinating. Antony wrote for Billboard magazine during the entire shift from analog to digital. So this guy was writing about that shift journalistically at a very, obviously high-end magazine over those years, and he's got a lot to say about it. He's got a lot of interesting things to share with you. He's fun. We had a great time, a great talk. He's fascinating. So I think you're going to enjoy with me my new friend from Royalty Exchange, Antony Bruno. Hey, Antony, it's great to have you on the show today, man.
Thanks for having me. I know it's been a while since we first started talking about doing this, so I'm really excited that we're finally able to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said in the intro, I love Royalty Exchange. I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Now you guys are opening up shop here in Nashville, right?
We were moving a few guys down here, exactly. We don't have an office location or anything like that just yet. It's going to be a little bit more remote to start. But yeah, Nashville's just it's a really fantastic town with a lot of, great concentration of songwriters, a lot of people in the business, and
absolutely,
for a small company, it makes sense to start off somewhere like this.
Yeah, well, you've got, and I want to talk all about that, and I want to talk about my experience in the last year with Royalty Exchange, and what a great blessing you guys have been to me as we've started NCS, and you've helped, with the financial backing for what we're doing. It's really gotten us through last year in a big way, and so I want to talk about that. But
fantastic.
Let's talk a little bit about you,
sure,
and about your musical background. Because I know that you've got some chops. You're not
not exactly in the way you might think.
You're not a newbie to this thing, right? So tell us kind of who you are and your history in this thing.
Yeah. So let me just first start by saying I'm not in any way a musician or a music creator, other than playing tuba in high school band for a little bit. That was about the extent of my actual musical background. My chops are more in the music business end. So I was a reporter for Billboard magazine for about 7 years. And I had the fortunate circumstance to cover the digital music business from pretty much its very early stages. I think I started working at Billboard just after the launch of iTunes, the music store. And so this was before the iPhone. The iPod was around, but the iPhone hadn't yet come around yet, and this was 2005.
Wow.
So 2005 to about 2012, I was at Billboard magazine, and covered all of the different developments, the ups and downs. Some things are still here, many things are not. Funny story is I actually came from the wireless industry. I was a reporter covering, and actually worked at a trade association for the wireless industry, where my specialty was what was called then wireless data, things where you could first start getting, texts and websites on your phone and things like that. So I started off with that because at the time, the music business felt that ringtones were going to be the big savior, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, absolutely, right. So, you had they had the piracy hit, and '99 was when Napster, kind of first started changing things, and there was many years of all that disruption when they saw the labels had seen that people were buying ringtones, but we weren't buying songs. So they figured, okay, ringtones are going to be our new music product that we're going to move, and so Billboard wanted someone who knew that space. Because I came in, I didn't know anything. I didn't know the labels. I didn't know how publishing worked. I knew nothing. So that's kind of how it started. But that expanded to streaming, downloadable music, video games, MySpace, and the social network. I mean, all those things kind of fell under my area of coverage. So it was a good opportunity to really get in on the new music business, as you might call it, at the very beginning.
You know, it's kind of hard to think back. You said '05.
'05.
Right?
Yeah.
And we didn't have iPhones.
No iPhone
in
back then.
'05, really?
Yeah.
People, how did we live without an iPhone?
If you remember the way it worked then, it was very clunky. I mean, you had the iPod was the only device that you can play music that you bought from iTunes, right? Because of the whole DRM thing. That's an old digital rights management is what it stands for, and it really kind of screwed up how digital music got started, and so it could only work. That's why Apple had the dominant position that they gained, and all the other platforms, they had like these Microsoft devices that were supposed to work with the other services, and they didn't really work properly, but then none of them worked with the iTunes,
right?
So it was just a mess, and streaming was even harder. Like you had these devices that didn't have connectivity, so you had to register a device with the computer monthly in order to play streaming songs that you had saved on that. I mean, it's almost laughable when you think about it now.
Yeah, it sounds like dial-up or
yeah,
something. I
yeah,
remember.
Yeah, like a little external modem with a little funny noise. It's kind of like that level of evolution in the music business.
Yeah,
so, it's pretty different.
You know, fortunately, I worked for some forward-thinking people here in the music business at Star Song Music, and back in the day, I mean, the chief operating officer, she had a vision for what tech was going to be, and I remember we were all given. They make fish bowls out of them now, but the little plastic, the very first Macs. I forget the number. I don't know the number of them, but
maybe the iMac or something with the personalized colored plate in the back.
It wasn't even. They weren't even colors then. I mean, they were just like this ugly beige.
Oh yes,
and
the Apple
had
IIs.
the floppy disk. And it was so slow. We'd all just die if we had to use that these days.
Oh yeah.
But she was so forward thinking, and so I started, with that way back, and have just walked through the entire evolution of the tech stuff. But it sounds like you have two, and so, but you come at this from a journalistic kind of background.
Originally, yes, I was a reporter. If you count the days from before Billboard to when I left, for about 20 years altogether is what I was doing in different areas. But I said about the last 7 of which were at Billboard, and then I left to sort of just pursue consulting. I was interested in, basically at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller. I like to learn things and tell people about it. That's always been what I like to do. And the state of journalism is a little bit different today than it was back then. I think a lot of journalists feel a lot of the same pressures of the way the internet's sort of disrupted their livelihood, much the way that artists and songwriters have. And so I kind of saw a lot of that coming and decided to make a switch on my own rather than being forced to when I wasn't prepared. And so I started working for companies who also wanted to tell their stories and just needed someone with a different frame of mind to do so, and with a little bit of a background in the business. So that included many music companies as well, but also some outside of the music business. But I just keep on kind of getting pulled back into those music companies. They find me somehow, I mean, I'm based in Denver, Colorado, which is not exactly a huge music industry hub, yet, I was able to still find plenty of exciting projects to work on, so it was fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Billboard background and all that, getting to know famous people, I assume? And
most of them were just the business folks. I mean, I interviewed a lot of artists, don't get me wrong, but my job was not to talk to artists very much. I mostly talk with the executives at the labels or at the music services and the technology folks, so that was more my sort of realm that I covered. But I definitely did interview a number of artists on those same topics as well, some who knew a little bit more about what we were talking about than others. I mean, right. It's a spectrum.
Well, I happen to know that your associate Nick was an A&R guy in New York, and Toad the Wet Sprocket and Alice in Chains were 2 of his biggest clients, I guess.
I mean, those are two of the bigger signings that he was responsible for that I know about. I'm sure there's others, but those are the first 2 that come to mind. But Nick's been around as well, and he knows everybody.
That's cool. Well, we love having you on. Maybe we'll interview him another time.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm sure you'd love it.
My dad was a reporter in Memphis, Tennessee, all of my life, basically. And
I didn't know that.
So very familiar with the whole journalism thing. And I'm using a lot of journalism right now. Just
interviewing people.
And what we're doing with the podcast.
All it is just talking to people, asking questions, and telling good stories. That's really what it is at the end of the day.
It's fun. I love it too. And I love just getting to know what makes people tick when we have artists or anyone, songwriters, industry people. I always like to ask about your motivations. You know, what really motivates you to do this? And I think that you've already explained that quite a bit, and helping people, connecting the dots, helping people find the kind of financing through these new things that Royalty Exchange does. Can you give us a little bit of just kind of the broad view of what you're doing there with Royalty Exchange?
Happy to. So, what Royalty Exchange does is we're a platform, an online platform that connects creators with investors as a way of helping them raise money in a bit of a different way than might be traditionally available. We have a number, like about 22,000 or more, maybe closer to 23,000 investors registered as members on our platform. And these are people who are looking for investments of different kinds, and they come to us to invest in royalty streams, okay? So we allow them to buy a share of an artist's royalty stream without that artist having to give up control of their copyright, without them having to sell their entire catalog or their entire song. They're able to simply determine on their own how much of what they are currently earning through royalties to make available to an investor. And what the investor does is pays an upfront lump sum of money, like usually a multiple on that on whatever is being sold's last 12 months of earnings. They get that large lump of money up front to do whatever they want with, and then the investor gets a percentage of that artist's royalty stream, either forever, or we have an option where you can have that royalty stream returned back to you after a number of years, and that's basically how it works. So it's different than an advance, okay? In that, with an advance, usually you get the advance from whoever's providing the advance, and then anything you make going forward, at least in part, goes to paying back that advance. Sometimes everything till you're recouped, sometimes just a portion. But the point is, even any new music you make after the advance, the proceeds from that is going back to pay off that advance. With us, it's different. You're only selling a part of your existing royalty stream. So when you collect the money from the investor through the process of working with us, if you make any new music with that capital, anything you earn from that new music remains all yours. So you're only paying it from the proceeds of your back, an older work. And that's a little bit of a different concept, basically.
Right. Well, and I've experienced this firsthand.
Yes, you have.
I actually did my auction with you guys last year. It was about this time last year when I pulled the trigger. Yeah. And we did it. And I found you guys through Facebook.
Yep.
Through a Facebook funnel, a Facebook ad. Yes, and I do Facebook funnels for our NCS boot camp. Our premium coaching offer is really through a Facebook ad. Primarily, we have a lot of cold traffic. I talk to aspiring songwriters every day, and some of them join up. If they're smart, they join up to the premium boot camp. But that's how I stumbled into you guys, and I saw this ad, and I thought, because I've had over 400 songs recorded in my career, and I've been at this for almost 35 years, and I've watched over the last number of years, really over 5 years ago, where it started dwindling. Just the quarterly income, annual income was really going south. Right. and so when I forget what your ad even is, or was at that time.
That's we've had several since then.
I'm sure you have, yeah. But it caught my eye because it's like, there I was with all of these copyrights, these two main catalogs. One when I was with the Gaithers organization here in town, Star Song Media, and it got sold years ago and folded into Capital EMI Music Group and that. But hundreds of songs sitting there that nobody knows, that aren't getting on new recordings. Songs I love these songs. I mean, my heart and soul are in these songs, Antony. You have to know.
I can only imagine.
And that catalog, and then my Integrity Music catalog, when I was managing all the songwriters there, I got to write, and I did a couple of recordings with them, and that have gone worldwide. I have a small handful of what I'd call racehorse copyrights that were earning big, right?
Okay.
Songs and hymnals, songs that have gone over all around the world. And yet I watched as the income was shrinking and shrinking because those copyrights weren't being re-upped, if you will.
Sure.
Because they're older, because everybody's into the hip-hop, cool, what's happening now stuff. And, it's just a cycle, right? A season. And when I saw your ad, it's like, wonder if I could monetize these back catalogs and see what happens. So I just called you guys up.
Oh, and we're glad that you did. It's been great to know you, and I'm glad we've kept in touch since then. And it's been a year now. Time flies. It's kind of amazing. But that's one of the things that people get a little not confused, but they kind of they don't always understand what the motivation of the investor is. Why would an investor want to acquire a catalog that you're saying obviously is starting to dwindle over time? And I think it's really a matter of looking at the perspective of who it is we're talking about here. As a songwriter, as someone who earns a living from this music, from these royalties, they need to perform at a certain level to be meaningful to you. Okay, that's your income. All right. Yes, they do decline, but they either decline very slowly, or they usually reach a certain plateau and sort of stay around that same level for a long time. All right. Now, as an investor, they've got other sources of income. All right. What they're doing is trying to find an investment that's going to bring them a return, that's going to provide what we call in the investment world yield. Okay. And so you can take your money, put it in a savings account, and earn, I don't know, 0.5% maybe, maybe 1% now. I don't even know what it's at, but it's pretty low. Or you can put in the stock market, which is really volatile, and yet maybe you make a lot, or maybe it really goes down, so on. So what they look at here is they look at while your revenues from your royalties may have declined a bit to no longer be meaningful to you, that low level of royalties that are being delivered on a consistent, regular, and expected and predictable basis is very interesting to an investor who's looking at this as one of many different investments that they might have. Okay, so that's the motivation from the investor end. They see this as a way of generating yield, return on their capital in larger increments than they could in, say, a safer bet like a savings account, but more stable than, say, the stock market, and even more importantly, unrelated to the stock market. So they also have stocks, and the stock market might crash. But if the stock market crashes, the revenue being created by royalties isn't affected by that. Okay, we call it uncorrelated. What happens is the rate that you're owed for the use of your music is going to stay the same whether the stock market's up or down. That remains constant. It's based on usage. To your point, right? Generally, usage has shown no correlation to going up, or actually shows correlation to going up in down markets. Right, people consume more entertainment. Maybe they go to church more when they're in, when they, what I'm saying, this kind of thing. Yeah, they go pray for the stock to turn around, maybe. But the point is, it's a different kind of risk than the risk they take in other areas, and that's what makes it so attractive to them.
Right. Well, I get that, and I think that the future of streaming could make these catalogs skyrocket. I mean, there's the
absolutely
selling the futures of these things.
Absolutely. I mean, so when people come to us, we have to take a look at their catalog. We kind of do evaluation and an analysis, and we understand, is this trending upwards, downwards, the same? All these things. And when we first started out about 2 years ago, what you'd see was generally everything had some level of what we would call decay or decline taking place. It was usually okay. The year-over-year trends are somewhat even marginally, but still going down. The streaming impact has been felt. Okay, in the last year, I'd say in the last 6 months, even when we're looking at things, we generally see more of an incline. Now it was going like this, and now it's just starting to kind of come up. So we're seeing catalogs that are now showing rates of increase, depending on it very much depends on the type of right, the type of catalog, and that sort of thing. And one of the more real interesting things I think is that like yourself, the music and the royalties that do the best on our platform are those that have been around for a longer period of time, because there's a longer time frame for an investor to analyze and judge whether or not this is something worth investing in. All right, we call it dollar age. It's kind of a strange name, but basically a song that earned $5,000 last year, but was written 10 years ago, or at least was released rather 10 years ago, okay, that's going to be worth more to an investor than a song that earned $5,000 last year, but was only released the year before.
Interesting.
Okay, so that's a huge differentiation that a lot of people in the music industry might expect, because it's all about what's new and what's hot.
Yeah. And I think the whole concept of royalties, or maybe not the concept, but the knowledge of how royalties work, can be really baffling to a lot of the people that are probably watching this live or even hearing the podcast.
Hey,
right?
I mean, we work at the intersection of music royalties and finance. So if there's ever two very confusing concepts sort of clashing together, that makes my job as communications director pretty interesting, because I'm trying to educate a lot of people about a lot of different things. One side doesn't always understand how the other works, and vice versa. And it takes a lot of education and a lot of communication.
We're going to take just a quick break and talk about something that I think is going to be very valuable for you as a Christian songwriter. So check it out.
Do you feel like God's given you a bunch of songs, but you don't know what to do with them? Do you feel like you've got a real call on your life to write, but you're clueless about where to start? Or maybe you've got writer's block and you're wondering if you'll ever get the creative juices flowing again. Well, we've got you covered with NCS membership. NCS membership is all about community and how to grow in this calling you feel deep inside to be heard. We get it. We know that you just want to honor God with your talents and be a good steward of what He's given you. And that's why NCS membership could be your next right step to grow, learn, be challenged, get connected, and ultimately fulfill your dreams to glorify God and reach others with the same passion you feel. It's designed to help you tell your story and to reach listeners who will love your songs. With your NCS membership, you'll receive 2 free song critiques, 24/7 access to valuable masterclasses on topics such as modern hymn writing, worship writing, song form, lyric development, and recording home demos, as well as discounts for other NCS products, and a deep connection into a community of creatives who get you. There are a lot of songwriters out there, so you need to be the best you can be to stand out, be heard, and become the songwriter you were born to be. Just go to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com now to check out all the great benefits of becoming part of a decidedly Christian community of songwriters from all over the world. NCS membership, your next right step to being heard.
Well, I just hope that you'll take advantage of that and check it out. All right? We bring you good stuff here on the Song Revolution podcast. So back to our episode. You know, the 2 most downloaded podcasts here on our show, number 1 is John Mays, who's the head of Centricity Music here in Nashville. His episode called How to Make It in the Christian Music Industry Business. And the one where we had one of my dear friends, Susan Fontaine Godwin. She owns the Christian Copyright Solutions. And so her episode on copyright, which touched on royalties a little bit, but it was really more about copyright, different kind of licenses and that's the 2nd most downloaded episode here. So it's great to be doing another one talking about
Fingers crossed.
I know, right? So
download this one.
Antony be like, eclipse John Mays and the whole thing. But the whole point is that you can make money at song royalties,
Yeah, you could definitely make more money with your royalties in different ways than you maybe could in the past, because there's more people that are interested in getting involved. See, the position that we take is we are not just, and this is often a point of confusion, that we don't buy the music royalties. Royalty Exchange doesn't buy music royalties. Royalty Exchange does not provide advances. It is not. We're not putting our money at stake in this transaction. And that's good for those people that we work with, because we are not negotiating against you. We're not trying to get the best deal for ourselves when we give you money and get in return your royalties. That's not the dynamic that this is. It is with almost everyone else that you might want to work with. And that's not always a bad thing, but that's always there. If you're negotiating with a bank or with a label or a publisher or maybe a private advance company, all of them, it's their money that they're putting at stake. So they naturally have to try to get the best, hopefully fair deal for themselves. But at some point, there's a balance where that means you don't get as good a deal for you. Whereas with our platform, we take a commission on any sale that takes place on the platform, right? We bring in competition so that there's multiple bidders bidding over your either to buy or provide an advance on your royalty stream. So they're competing against each other. That generally tends to raise the price, and it definitely ensures that you're going to get the best price that market can support. So you don't walk away wondering, if I had gone over here, could I have gotten a better deal? You'll know, okay? And we're incentivized to get everyone the best deal. Our incentivization is to create a healthy marketplace. The more people like yourself we make happy and come back and recommend others, the better we do. The more investors that feel happy with their investment, they come back and send others. That's our motivation. So it's a much different dynamic working with us than you would get with, say, really anyone else. And
Right.
you do have to be careful when it comes to monetizing your royalty stream, because whenever you talk about things like royalties and sales, naturally a red flag will go up, because there's been a lot of bad actors in the space historically, and even still today, that should make you be very careful about who are you going to work with and who are you going to strike a deal with your royalties, because this is your livelihood, your income, and to your point, your heart and soul that you put into these songs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Last year when I was trying to make the decision, we had the deal totally in place. Mm-hmm. I knew everything about what was going to happen, and there are no guarantees when you go out to auction. I mean, there's some predictors, right? Mm-hmm. But you guys you never told me an exact number you thought I would get. Right? I mean,
I don't think. We usually provide a range. I think
it was a range, but there wasn't like, okay, we're guaranteeing that you're going to come back at this, because you don't know.
Because we don't know exactly.
You don't know. Well, it was far away and above, what I thought it was going to be. So, but the biggest decision I had to make was an emotional one.
Yes,
I had to look at all of those songs that I'd written over a 30-year period. Mm-hmm. I had to look at them. That's not totally true, because those were two older catalogs. So I wrote them basically over about a 15-year period. Mm-hmm. But they're 15 or 20 years old now, those catalogs. So, but I had to separate myself and look at it as a business transaction, look at it as those were my intellectual properties that I could do something with. Mm-hmm. And we were, as we were building Nashville Christian Songwriters, we needed some cash. We needed some, money coming in as a startup.
Yeah.
This is what we're pouring our lives into to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. And it's the convergence of my whole life. This is what I wanted to write a song for Jesus when I was 18 years old, and never dreamed it would turn into over 400 songs recorded, traveling the world, singing, ministering, working in the music business. And then having left the music business for a long season, to be coming back, and here I am again, sitting right by Music Row with you guys. It's just kind of amazing, but it was the right thing at the right time for me.
Well, great. And what's really interesting is that whenever you bring up the idea of selling royalties or leveraging royalties in some fashion to raise money, there's a misconception that a lot of the motivation is out of some kind of desperation. Typically, that's what happens in the advance world, because advances are quick, they're easy, and they're known, and people end up getting kind of bad deals in the advances because they need the money right now. You can get those happen more quickly. With us, we work very quickly. We could usually turn things around in about 30 days. But the idea is that most people that come to us don't just say, hey, here's all my stuff, how much can I get for it? It's usually, I need to raise around this much money for this thing, for this next music project, for this tour, for this house, whatever it might be. They have there's usually a number in mind. So what we do is we work with the artist and say, okay, let's see what your catalog is earning. Okay, based on these earnings, you should probably sell this much of it. And you could either do it for perpetuity, which would get around this range, or you can do it where they come back to you after 10 years and you can kind of get around this range, and we'll provide you with those estimates. And so that way you don't have to give up any more than you really have to in order to achieve what it is you want to achieve. And that's the whole point. You shouldn't be forced into an all or nothing deal. And one thing I want to add is that since we've worked with you, we've got a new tool. It's not quite live yet, but it should be live fairly soon, where we're going to be offering a free automatic catalog valuation and analysis app online. And what that will let you do is, if you go to the site, it's worth.royaltyexchange.com. Right now, it's just leave an email and we'll send you a link when it's live, but we're talking about a couple of weeks here. The idea is that you would provide some information about your catalog, mostly the public performance royalties. That's what we tend to work with most, with the PROs and whatnot. And it'll give you back, and that's a range. Here's sort of the range that we think we can raise for you on our platform if you were to opt for the 10-year, the royalties return back to you after 10-year option. Okay, so you'll get a minimum, maximum number. Okay, and then below that will be an analysis of the other elements of the catalog, things that we look at when we provide that valuation. It'll be your top earning songs, the trends of those top earning songs, either going up or down. Some are going down, but still top earning. Some are going up, a little bit less, but it'll show you that for the last year and for the last 3 years. It'll show you lifetime trends. It'll show you your top sources of income: radio, streaming, physical CD sales, etc. Right? It'll show you all of that, and all this is something that'll provide for you automatically. You don't even have to have a phone call with us. You get that information, and now you're armed with this valuation and with this estimate, which you can use to compare against other deals, which you can use just to have peace of mind about understanding how your catalog's performing. And it's all just for you to use to have your information, because we believe information is power. Information is the one thing that creators typically in the music industry have lacked. Someone usually tells them or something like that, and that's a power dynamic that probably needs to change a little bit, and let the artists have a little bit more information about what it is they're doing, because it is not just their art, but it is, to your point, also their business.
Well, and if they're like me, they tend to just think about getting the songs cut, written, and placed, and see checks coming in the mail. And I know some writers that are pretty serious about scoping their royalty statements. I never was. It's like, put the check in the bank and move on.
Well, it was really hard to do that,
Yeah.
So having ways to make that easier for you, I think, might change some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And things have changed a lot, in the last 15, 20 years since I was with those larger companies doing that, right? And I tend to be more spaced out and creative and just thinking about the lyrics of the music.
Sure.
As a lot of writers.
Well, there's a time
are.
for that. I was at the ASCAP Expo conference last week, and there was a panel there, and someone said something that I thought was very interesting. It was that there's with any job, you should always set yourself certain times to do certain things, and where you let yourself be here for this and let yourself be there for that. And one of the things is definitely create time to think about your art and your work. In fact, that should be most of it, but you should have some portion, whether it's of your week or of your month, or that's going to be where you dedicate to your business. And to use that time, focus on your business, answer the questions you have to have answered, address the concerns that you have, and come to resolution with those things. And this isn't even about selling. This is generally getting your affairs in order. That's going to make the time that you've given yourself to create far more effective and valuable, because you're not having that nagging thing in the back of your head, right?
Yeah, I have to do the same thing with NCS. I have to set aside time to work on my business instead of just in my business,
right?
Because we're seriously. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly working to help people understand what we're doing, just as you do, right? Because people look at what we do and it's mysterious to them, and they think if they can just get me on the phone, then they're suddenly going to be discovered, and they're going to be a hit songwriter and get on the radio and meet, Lauren Daigle or somebody big in the music business.
Sure.
And it doesn't really work like that.
Rarely.
You've got to have songwriting chops if you're going to be heard in this town, because there's about 1 million, driving by the windows here on the street, right?
Yeah, probably.
78 have gone by in the last 10 minutes out there. So it's kind of like that. It's like this whole mysterious royalty thing. How does it work? But it starts with writing great songs and being a creative, right?
Right. Starts with writing great songs. So you got to have the skills. You've got to have the hustle. And you probably have to have a little bit of luck. I mean, let's be honest. That's kind of what's involved in these things. But people make their own luck, And with the financial part of it, it's like. And I'm also here for the Music Biz conference that's taking place currently. And another interesting thing I heard on the stage is that as a creator, you need to give yourself the room and the ability to be able to say no. Okay, having your finances in order allows you to say no to things. If they're not, you have to say yes to everything just to continue to work. Exactly. I mean, so are you writing the music that you want to write, or are you writing the music that you have to write in order to keep doing other things? And so, when you have those royalty streams that are more what some people call bill money than actual real money, right? Sometimes, taking a portion of those, raising a lump sum of capital, having that, our CEO always says the right amount of capital injected into your life at the right time can have an oversized impact. Mm-hmm. It creates the space for you to do the things that you want to do. And talking about money can be really crass, and it can be really, to seem really, business and corporate and wonky and things like that. But financial security does create artistic freedom. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, real artists don't starve. There's a book. We'll have to look up the author of that book, but it's a great concept. Mm-hmm. That if we can work on our business of songwriting and keeping up, managing, what we're doing with our lives, it does bring security. It does bring the freedom to be more creative, because I've seen this with some of the clients that I work with, because we do this 8-week premium boot camp thing where we're meeting online, video conference calls, we're coaching, we offer video training to kind of undergird all that. And they get in this real panic long about the 6th week, because they feel like they've not written enough songs during the boot camp. They've not written enough great songs during the boot camp, and they just freak out. And they're like, my time's almost up. My time's almost up. And they're literally freaked out. And I'm like, look, this whole thing is about equipping you to write forever, not just about this time that we're spending. And you can't write or be creative under stress. And that's what we're talking about with the financial side of it, right?
That's a very good point.
It brought me, we weren't in distress last year when I did our auction, but it was a great opportunity for us to put more capital into our company.
Right. I mean, it's a bigger boulder, if it were, that actually moves things. I mean, what do you want to throw, pebbles into a stream or big rocks? You see what I'm saying? Bigger rocks and make a bigger splash. And that's just how it is, particularly with things like, to work with us, you have to have some history of royalty earnings. A lot of folks come to us and be like, hey, can you find me an investor? I got this new album coming out. That doesn't work. You have to have some history that people can evaluate, generally around $2,500 a year, right? So let's say you're making $2,500, $3,000 a year in royalties, that's kind of at that threshold level. You're getting that over the course of probably 4 quarters, all right? So now you're getting 4 quarterly checks of, okay, I'm not good at math, but it's, a little less than $1,000 a quarter, basically, right? Like, you get that and you're just going to spend it on something, whatever. You're going to pay off a bill. You're going to maybe go to a nice dinner. Or, it's not meaningful and impactful. You get 8 years of that up front. That's something you could do something actual with, okay? And that's the difference, and that sets you up in a much different place. So, that's kind of how those things work.
Yeah. So you do have, is anyone interested in coming to work to talk with you guys, work with you, would need to have some history. I just want to reiterate that, because that's true. It's not just for anybody interested in just, okay, can you help finance my songwriting habit? It's really for those people who've had some things recorded. Now, does that is there a distinction there for people that maybe they've had their own traveling ministry, for instance, right? And they travel and they sing, but maybe they're self-published. Is there any leeway for working with self-published people, or
Perhaps.
Is this more?
What we look for, basically, we need to work with someone. The royalty stream that we work with has to be have some sort of standard acceptable form of collection and distribution. Okay, so typically what we work with is public performance royalties that are paid through the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. That's a large majority of the kind of deals that we do. So as long as you're registered with those organizations and there's a flow of income coming through those things, you could be self-published, but you should still be registered with the PRO, because otherwise I don't see how you're getting that, how you're getting those royalties sent to you. So the short answer, I guess, would be yes, so long as there was this entity that was overseeing that collection and distribution, because it's very established, matter of sending, the letter of direction to the organization that says, okay, from now on, X% goes to the creator, X% goes to the investor. That's an established system that's easy to work with. If there's not a clear path and to ownership of collecting and distributing the royalties, then it's a little bit harder, because we also have to make sure we're protecting the investor as well. The investor can't pay for a royalty stream and then find out they're not going to actually receive it. So we have to make sure that that's going to be fair for both sides.
I guess that's the big distinction there, because if someone is self-published and it's all just lumped in with everything that they're earning from record sales, back of the room, merch table kind of thing, they're not really accounting to themselves for those royalties, even if they are under
things like merge and touring revenue are things that we don't operate with. Particularly, there's so much strange accounting that goes into that across the music business. It's kind of a tough one, and it's hard to track. But the other stuff is with streaming, with the move towards digital, the ability to track and monitor and report more accurately, and this stuff is basically ultimately going to help the artist, because they're going to be earning what they actually deserve, and not just sort of this, kind of thing that's gone on in the past. So it's a little bit of a better system.
So say someone's listening and they come to you and they've got some kind of history of being registered with a PRO, having a publisher for their songs, and some income stream. Generally, $2,500 in earnings over the last year is kind of the base.
For the portion that you want to make available.
For the
you can be earning far
right.
more, but at least you want to make available that portion.
Right. Whatever portion of the catalog you want to offer there for possible auction. What are the steps after that? How does the process unfold?
Yeah, no problem. So we, whether it's a phone call or whether you come in through the website, royaltyexchange.com, there's a raise money tab, and it kind of explains the process for you. If you're going through online, you would fill out this form that would lead to this valuation form that I just mentioned. But you'll get at the end of that, you'll get the estimate, you'll get the analysis, things like that. And it'll be a button to say, click to set up a time to speak with us, basically. And so usually it does involve a phone call. We'll have someone from our artist relations team kind of walk you through the process so you fully understand everything that we're doing. Because, again, people have different expectations or preconceived notions and whatnot. We want to make sure everyone understands what it is exactly that we're doing and how it works. We'll negotiate where the starting price should be. It's not really a negotiation because as the creator, it's your decision what you want the starting price to be. But we have done a lot of these auctions in the past, and we have some history of results to share that I think would help you understand that if you start, the lower you start the starting price of an auction, the better the auction generally does. Because what you want to do is get people in the door, so to speak. When you walk by a restaurant, do you walk into an empty restaurant or do you walk into a full restaurant, right? So investors look at that. They see 3, 4, 5 bidders. Oh, I got to get in on this. So sorry, I'm getting a little too into detail. But basically, we explain how the auction process works a little bit. And then once you decide on your starting price, we do the due diligence to make sure that there's unencumbered earnings, that you don't have any like tax liens or any other claims on the income that would get in the way of the investor being able to have access to it. And then we create a listing. You look at the listing, you sign the listing agreement saying, yes, this is all what I agree to. And then the listing goes on our site. We then market that listing to thousands of investors, 22,000 some investors via email and other formats. So they know there's a new listing. They see the highlights of it. They come, read the listing, review the financials. It's all available there for everyone to take a look at on the site. And then once there's a bid, the auction kicks off. All right. The auctions generally last about 3 days, and you'll have a number of bidders that are investors that will register to watch the auction. They'll get alerts as the bidding takes place. What happens is in the last 5 minutes of the auction, if anyone places a bid in the last 5 minutes of the scheduled auction, the auction automatically extends for another 5 minutes. And that's to keep someone from what's called sniping the auction, to like bid at the last second and then get it while someone else might have paid more. We want everyone to be able to fully express their desire for the catalog, and that tends to, it's really exciting when you watch it. You'll see it kind of click up. You're like, 3, 2, there's another bid, and it just clicks back up again. It's really kind of fun to watch. So when the auction ends, there'll be a final amount raised. We'll contact all parties. Hey, congratulations, your auction's over. Here's how much you earned. We take our commission from that sale. We handle all the paperwork from the money being transferred to the creator, so you get your check, to the transfer, and handle all the paper for the transfer of the royalty stream to the investor, and then you're basically done. And I'm proud to say that about 2/3 now of the people that we've ever worked with, like yourself, have either returned and auctioned either a different part of their catalog or a different kind of royalty with us, or they've returned a friend. And that's the best testimonial that I could think of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been a bit of an evangelist for you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate it very much.
I was interviewed here in Nashville for the Tennessean.
That's right.
Newspaper.
Front page.
I know. That was crazy. But I liked my picture. I was having a good hair day, so it's like it worked. You're
looking good now too, man. I don't know. I'm kind of feeling a little underdressed here.
You're cool, buddy. But yeah, so I was pretty out front, and maybe we'll post the link to that article in the show notes or something so people can read that. I was very upfront, with my experience, with even the numbers, with what happened, and it was great, and I'm not ashamed. It was a great experience, and love you guys, love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. So I know that a lot of people that listen to our podcast have not really had songs recorded and an income stream, but a lot of them have. I as I interact with different people in the music industry here, our podcast has just been around a year, but I meet these artists when I call them or contact them about coming on the show, and they're like, well, I listen all the time. And I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, we're cooler than I thought we were, right? But if someone who does have that income stream, it'd be the same process. Just go to royaltyexchange.com, contact you guys, and if you guys hear about Royalty Exchange through us, be sure and mention that
Please
to
do.
these guys.
Absolutely.
Let us know. Let them know that what we're doing to support them is working.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate that, and I know that our team's been in contact with you regularly, letting you thanking you and letting you know when those things do happen. So it's always appreciative.
Absolutely. Love Clayton. Work with Clayton a lot.
Clayton's one of the guys that'll be moving here in Nashville. So Clayton and Nick will be here shortly. Probably by June, they'll both be here on a full-time basis. So
that's great.
You'll be seeing them around, I hope.
We're going to be the welcome committee, the welcome wagon for Nick and Clayton, and happy to have them here, and just looking forward to continuing to build the relationship. Any last-minute things you'd like to say to our audience about what you do?
I think, we try to get it all out there. I think it's worth knowing that, again, we do feel that information and transparency is really two of the things that we hope that we can bring to the music, at least this portion of the music business that historically hasn't been there. I mean, investors who want to be involved in this, they need to be able to see how things are earning and what's there. And I think that too often we've tried to put that under the rug a little bit, and so artists don't know what they're earning, investors don't understand. There's royalty transactions and catalog transactions in this town, particularly all the time. No one really knows how much it went for, that kind of thing. So I think transparency and making the information more available to everybody is ultimately going to expand this business for all, particularly the creator. That's our philosophy, and that's why we do things the way we do.
Fantastic. Antony Bruno with Royalty Exchange, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you.
We wish you the best and look for great things to come.
All right, great.
All right, man. Thanks for listening in today on the Song Revolution podcast. If you're wanting to take your songwriting to the next level, be sure to jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com right now to check out all the valuable resources that we have there for you, especially NCS membership, where you can go deeper into a community of like-minded songwriters and tap into encouraging blogs, videos, powerful masterclasses, and a whole lot more to get you where you really want to go. I'll see you next time.